is next to me, and you're talking today about the middleman, aren't you, in the French elections?
Yeah, Francois Bayrou, the election's, if you like, third man between the centrists stuck between the two main candidates. He's actually fourth in a lot of polls, behind Sarkozy, Hollande and Marine Le Pen. So he's sort of failing to exploit his position so far, the papers are saying. But he launched a new programme yesterday. He's got a new campaign slogan. He wants a united France, La Croix says on its front page. So who is he and what does he actually want? What are his policies? Well, there's a few main planks of this that help him stand out from the other candidates. Firstly, the idea of made in France, supporting small businesses to help them produce products in France, something that the two main candidates have basically borrowed from him wholesale, but it was his idea. So what he wants to do is create regional banks that would give small businesses more funding to allow them to make their products in France. He's also very religious, very Catholic, so one of his other main campaign themes is restoring morality to politics. Of course, the Sarkozy presidency has been mired in a series of corruption scandals, and he's got plans, several measures that would stop this happening in the future, to do with stopping politicians from accumulating different jobs at the same time, acting as advisors to outside companies and things like that. He also wants to cut ministers and the president's salary to help cut state expenses. And he also is very keen and focused on education. He's very pro-European. He thinks there should be an elected president of Europe to try and make the EU a bit more democratic. And interestingly, in La Croix, they compare him, though, to the Lib Dems in Britain, saying if he ever did get elected, he'd have to form some kind of centrist coalition with other parties. And that would mean he'd be treading just as difficult and narrow a political line as they are. They reckon that the example of the Liberal Democrats kind of shows that it's very difficult for centrists to be in power, because the sort of political niche that they're in makes it quite difficult to please everyone. They reckon the people who voted for the Lib Dems at the last British election, I think they're probably right, probably won't do so in the future, because they've been pushed to either the left or the right, depending on whether they agree on what the government is doing or not. So they've kind of deleted their political space, La Croix says, and that might be the danger for him as well if he gets elected.
But a Clegg-Bayrou coalition is on the cards. He's also on the front page of Le Point.
Yeah, they call him a prophet on their front page. Why? Well, he famously predicted the financial crisis when he was running for president back in 2007. So he's got this reputation as having a fantastic economic mind, because he did predict that, a bit like Vince Cable, if we're going to carry on with the comparison. But Le Point says, of course, because of that, he's got some quite tough economic policies involving balancing the budget, social security cuts, and also higher taxes on high earners. So, you know, he's got some quite sensible economic policies in there. Le Figaro is also talking about him today. They say that yesterday he criticised all those contrasting polls that we've been talking about recently that don't seem to agree with one another. He basically accused the two main parties of paying for favourable polls and said that they should publish how much money they'd paid to people who make opinion polls.
Going to mention Francois Hollande, big rally in Marseille.
Yes, held that yesterday. He's on the front page of Libération. We've done a special issue that's all been written by fiction writers instead of journalists. So a novelist who's written about Francois Hollande is talking about what he would do if he were president. So it's quite a different look on the thing. But they say he was very passionate yesterday in Marseille, that his campaign is really waking up and supporters are very enthusiastic.
And finally, forget the presidential race, which is a little difficult to do in France at the moment. But Le Parisien, they're asking who could be the next prime minister.
Yes, remember in France that's not an elected office. Whoever is president gets to pick their prime minister. But they've done a poll on who voters think should be, and it's Alain Juppé, current foreign minister, who's way ahead. Now that would be a spectacular political comeback and a blast from the past. He was prime minister under Chirac in the 90s, then got disqualified from politics for 10 years as part of the penalty that he got when he was convicted in Chirac's fake jobs case. But apparently he's well ahead of right-wing supporters on who they want to see as their next prime minister. On the left, though, socialist supporters want Martine Aubry, of course, head of the party, and opposed Francois Hollande for the leadership for the presidential nomination. But they want to see her in Matignon. She's the popular nomination.
We shall find out in just a few weeks' time. Elena, thanks very much. That's Elena with the French papers on France 24. Headlines then, more violence in